Hey, what's up? I'm Darkbblue, trying to help you enjoy games in depth. If you want to learn Nioh 3, the most important mechanic should be the key of enemies. This video will start with this topic and lead to two basic combat strategies. Enemies in Nioh 3 are divided into humans and yokai. Look at this bar below an enemy's HP bar. It's its key. If the key bar is blue, this is a human. If it's purple, this is yokai. The key mechanic of humans is relatively simple, so let's start here. Essentially, human ki is highly similar to your ki. It recovers fast, but the recovery rate is reduced when blocking and attacking. If an enemy is hit, the ki bar is reduced, and if the enemy actively uses an attack move, the ki will also be consumed. Importantly, if the ki is reduced to 0 with an attack from you, the enemy will become stunned and vulnerable to grapple. Yokai ki is different in that it cannot recover with time, unless yokai is inside a yokai realm or a dark realm. But it's not so easily consumed with yokai's attacks either. Normally, you have to actively attack yokai to deplete its ki, rather than waiting for it to be consumed by yokai itself. However, this is not the most fundamental difference yet. In fact, yokai has an additional max ki besides the ki. Look at this. There's a black bar to the right of the purple bar. Then there's a red bar. This black bar is the max ki of this yokai. Although the ki of yokai can recover, it cannot recover beyond this max ki. And when hit, not only ki but also max ki will be reduced. We know most yokai has hyper armor. However, if its ki is depleted, it will lose this hyper armor, leaving them highly vulnerable. Furthermore, your attacks will reduce the max ki more greatly with an empty ki bar. So apparently this is an important chance for counterattacking. When the max ki is also depleted, yokai will become vulnerable to grapple. Or, if it's a weak yokai, depleting the ki rather than max ki is enough to turn it open to grapple. Lastly, if yokai has gone through a grapple, or if it's been in the empty ki bar state for too long, it'll try to recover its max ki a bit and recover its ki to the max ki value. Note that usually the max ki won't be fully recovered, so yokai is constantly being weakened during the fight. When a regular yokai recovers its ki, it also releases a yokai realm. If it's a boss yokai, it'll switch the dark realm instead. By switching, I mean if it's not in the dark realm yet, it'll release the dark realm. Otherwise, it'll quit the dark realm and release a yokai realm. Taking this chance, I think it's time for a small introduction to yokai realm and dark realm. When yokai recovers its ki, uses a strong attack, or spawns in certain cases, it will release a yokai realm. It's this dark circle effect. Yokai within the yokai realm recovers ki fast and human's ki recovery will be slowed. By default, a yokai realm is cleansed with ki pots of the samurai style. The dark realm is a very large area covering the entire battlefield. Yokai within the dark realm will recover ki, but more slowly than within the yokai realm. And for humans, it seems that the ki recovery won't be affected, which is different from the design in Nioh 2. Now that we know the difference between human and the yokai ki mechanics, it's time for a strategy against yokai enemies. Generally, this strategy is divided into two stages. First, when the ki of the yokai is not depleted yet, we need to fight using a reactive method. Basically, you want to wait for yokai to attack first, evade its attack, and counterattack within the post-attack window. Here you should note that when counterattacking, you want to pay more attention to ki damage rather than HP damage. And in Nioh 3, there are weapon skills specially designed to deal high ki damage. They are usually attacked with your sword sheath, the handle of your weapon, or a kick, rather than the blade of your weapon. Since our goal in this stage is not to directly deal HP damage but to deplete enemies' ki, and instead, you want to use these ki damage skills rather than the basic attacks. Once the ki is depleted, we enter the second stage. Now you want to use attacks and skills with strong damage. Besides dealing damage, you also want to further reduce the enemy's max ki. To do this, the best approach is to use your Guardian Spirit skill, which is especially good at this. In summary, first use ki damage skills in a reactive manner, then use HP damage skills and Guardian Spirit skills actively. Now we are into the latter half of this video. Before giving the strategy to human enemies, I need to first give another enemy categorization standard, blocking and non-blocking enemies. Commonly, yokai cannot block and humans can block, but there are exceptions, like blocking yokai and non-blocking humans. So why does this matter? An enemy being able to block has two potential impacts. First, if you hit an enemy, the ki damage you deal to it is based on the stat called ki damage. But if your attack is blocked, the ki damage dealt to the enemy is instead based on a different stat called break. There are weapon skills with very low ki damage and very high break, indicating it's designed to attack blocking enemies only. Second, some attacks will be deflected by enemies blocking, preventing you from doing further combo. For most weapons, the low and mid stance basic attacks of the samurai style and all basic attacks of the ninja style will be deflected, and high stance attacks along with all weapon skills cannot be deflected. So if you are fighting a blocking enemy, you want to use high stance and weapon skills rather than other attacks. However, not all weapon skills can actually be used against a blocking enemy. This is related to the key bindings. Note that weapon skills are performed using two types of key bindings. One is to directly use a key combination, such as block plus heavy attack. The other is to press a certain key after you perform a light or heavy attack. For the second type, if the preceding light or heavy attack is deflected, the weapon skill cannot be performed either. Therefore, although theoretically all weapon skills can be used against a blocking enemy, those requiring the preceding light or heavy attacks that can be deflected are usually not usable. In summary, when an enemy cannot block, our strategy is rather simple, just like the previous Yokai strategy. But for a blocking enemy, we have to pay attention to if an attack can actually be performed successfully and can use skills with stronger break rather than ki damage. Next, I will provide a strategy against blocking enemies. The first step is to use a fast attack, such as sprinting or dodging attack, to force it into the blocking mode. The second step is to reduce its ki. Since it's already blocking, you need to use attacks that won't be deflected and are advised to use a skill with high break. The last step is to perform a grapple after fully depleting its ki and deal serious damage. After the grapple, you can use a slow yet powerful attack to deal more damage as the enemy is trying to stand up. However, there are also non-blocking humans in Nioh 3, and there are actually quite many of them. Their ki can recover fast, making the previous yokai strategy not applicable. They don't tend to block, so you cannot force them into the blocking mode to gain advantages. My current recommendation is to directly deal HP damage to them. In summary, I believe this video can provide a foundation for your journey into Nioh 3. After you become familiar with the two strategies, it's time to deeper content. If you want to play games into depth together with me, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, see you around.